Welcome back. A record-setting 24 million Americans turned their televisions to Fox News Channel Thursday night as the GOP primetime debate became must-see TV. No doubt it's been the talk around your office and on your social media accounts this week. So joining us now to add their 2 cents into this political conversation is Talk Business and Politics contributor Jessica Sabin and Impact Management's Clint Reed. Good morning to you two.
You too. How are you?
All right, let's start this morning the way most of these water cooler conversations likely started this week. Donald Trump. So he was likely a big reason for the big ratings that they got on this debate. How do you think Trump did? I'm going to toss the question to you first, Clint.
Well, I was taught a long time ago, crazy never wins, never even comes close. I think it's the beginning of the end for Donald Trump. I think he's at his high water mark. I think he's doubled down on things. Look, if you're a Republican candidate, you want to be hopeful, you want to be optimistic, you want to show that you're a leader, that you can lead this country in a hopeful, optimistic way and bring people to your coalition. He doesn't do that. And I think last night or Thursday night in the debate, he showed that. And I think it will hurt him as he continues to double down, because he's not going to be a guy that walks away from his comments. He's going to double down and continue to embrace them. So I think he's on his way down. It's just a question of when.
And to you, Jessica, now a lot of folks saying that this was his make or break moment. Does he solidify himself as the real front runner, or does he kind of become the entertainment on the stage? What do you think happened?
Well, it's just like what we just heard. This is the beginning of the end for Donald Trump. There is no question that people tuned in because of him. Mostly, they wanted to see what he would say, because he's notorious for saying the first thing that comes to mind and then doubling down on it, owning it. He has a whole record of things that he might as well go ahead and own. There's no walking away from it. Megyn Kelly really took him to task, and it was kind of painful to watch, because you can really start to see how it's impossible to see a man like that in the White House. It's impossible to see a man like that in serious negotiations and really working on what's best for our country. I think, yeah, definitely the beginning of the end.
And certainly a clip that we're going to play right now, what Megyn Kelly said to Donald Trump.
You've called women you don't like fat pigs, dogs, slobs, and disgusting animals. Your Twitter account
only Rosie O'Donnell.
No, it wasn't. Your Twitter account.
Thank you.
For the record, it was well beyond Rosie O'Donnell.
Yes, I'm sure it was.
Your Twitter account has several disparaging comments about women's looks. You once told a contestant on Celebrity Apprentice it would be a pretty picture to see her on her knees. Does that sound to you like the temperament of a man we should elect as president? And how will you answer the charge from Hillary Clinton, who is likely to be the Democratic nominee, that you are part of the war on women?
I think the big problem this country has is being politically correct. I've been challenged by so many people, and I don't frankly have time for total political correctness.
All right, Clint, what's your reaction to that exchange?
Well, it's certainly not a general election winning answer. And if I was Donald Trump, I wouldn't be taking Megyn Kelly to task. I mean, she's the Fox News prima donna. I mean, if you, for lack of a better phrase, people love her, conservatives love her. I mean, she's a smart lady. And then subsequently following those comments, I mean, he's taken to Twitter and continued to berate her. So look, it's unbecoming to me of a presidential campaign and a candidacy. And to me, it's unfortunate. And I just don't think it's going to be very positive for him in the future.
All right, moving on. Another big exchange of the evening was between Governor Chris Christie and Senator Rand Paul. Let's take a look at that.
I want to collect more records from terrorists, but less records from other people. How are you supposed to know, Megyn?
Use the Fourth
What are you supposed
Amendment.
to? How are you supposed
Use
to?
the Fourth
No, I'll
Amendment.
tell you how you
Get a warrant.
Let me tell you something.
Get
you
a
go
judge to sign
when
a warrant.
you know, Senator.
Go ahead, wait, Governor Christie, make your point.
Listen, Senator, you know, when you're sitting in a subcommittee just blowing hot air about this, you can say things like that. When you're responsible for protecting the lives of the American people, then what you need to do is to make sure that you use the system the way it's supposed supposed to
Here's
work.
the problem, Governor. You fundamentally misunderstand the Bill of Rights. Every time you did a case, you got a warrant from a judge. I'm talking about searches without warrants, indiscriminately of all Americans' records, and that's what I fought to end. I don't trust President Obama with our records. I know you gave him a big hug, and if you want to give him a big hug again, go right ahead.
And they were certainly going at each other, caused a big spark on the debate floor. What was your reaction to that? I mean, the moderators just stepped back and let them have it.
Well, I don't think that you could find a more volatile combination of people on that stage. Paul could definitely just put Christie right over the moon, and he found a way to do that. And what's really important for Christie is to really to use this forum to maintain his cool, because he's known as hot-headed. Well, okay, that came out again last night. It's just a thing that won't go away. But the topic of conversation, talking about privacy rights, talking about national security and blurring those lines. And then with Paul saying basically, you don't understand the Constitution. Those are fighting words in Christie land.
Absolutely. What do you think, Clint?
Well, I think it's a legitimate debate within the Republican Party. You have this guy who describes himself as, I'm a new Republican, who embraces libertarian policies. And then you have a guy who, you know, was a U.S. attorney immediately following the September 11th attacks. Obviously, those have helped shape his, you know, foreign policy credentials. Yeah. So you have a very, you know, strong foreign policy candidate versus a very, what I would consider, and some in the Republican establishment would consider, a weak Republican candidate. So, you know, they're bound to cross wires, and they did. And I think ultimately it helped Chris Christie. It may not help him with a lot of folks that are general election voters, but at the end of the day, you got to remember the people watching this are people that are going to show up at the Iowa caucuses and the New Hampshire primary and South Carolina, and that's the people that most of the candidates were talking to last night. It wasn't the general population.
That is absolutely right. All right, well, we have a little bit more debate at our roundtable coming up after the break.
The military is not a social experiment. The purpose of the military is kill people and break things. It's not to transform the culture by trying out some ideas that some people think would make us a different country and more diverse.
And that was former Governor Mike Huckabee placing his remarks in about the military. Strong comments from our Arkansas former governor. What was your reaction to that moment, Jessica?
Well, he's definitely no stranger to strong comments. When he said that, I thought to myself, okay, that's definitely one way to put it. I think protecting and serving, that's another way to put it. Killing people and breaking things, that's this very macho tone, doubling down on the power and the appeal of the power behind our military. You know, it came off as just a candidate looking for a soundbite to latch himself onto once the debate was over, and I think that fell flat with most of the audience because there were plenty of other people who had better sound bites when it was over.
It's one of the things Jessica and I were talking about off camera is you have 10 candidates on stage. You had 7, you know, at the pre-debate. You know, your strategy is how do you break through, which is very difficult in a 2-hour setting. But not only break through in that debate, but how do you break through in the days following? And ultimately, you know, the 30-second soundbite, which Donald Trump is very good at, which ultimately Mike Huckabee is very good at, I think that's what he was trying to accomplish. But also, Huckabee's very good at knowing his audience. And it goes back to what I just said a little bit ago. If we're talking about very hardcore conservative Republican primary voters who believe in a very strong military, he was aiming at those people.
So overall, guys, I just want one more reaction from you. Who was the big winner in that debate? If you had to pick one of the 10 candidates on the stage that you at least think probably had the biggest push in the poll numbers coming out, who would that be, Clint?
Marco Rubio. If you look at where he is, I think he was 4th going into the debate. Young, charismatic, represents Florida. You know, a large number of delegates coming out of Florida. I think he has the biggest upshot coming out of the debate. I think you'll see his poll numbers rise. I think you'll see him continue to raise money. You know, if you're a Republican like myself who wants to win the presidency, you have to add people to your coalition. You know, you're not trying to take people away. I think he puts people in play, i.e. Latinos, in places like New Mexico and Colorado, which I continue to harp on. And so I think Republicans have got a really good idea of what he is.
Jessica, anybody stand out to you?
Well, Rubio for sure. I mean, this debate, the purpose of this debate wasn't to cater to people who were doing very well in the polls. It's for those people who are kind of in the in-between and seeing if they can move up. And he definitely made the most of that night for himself. I mean, it was impressive watching him be very firm on certain issues and not backing down when Megyn Kelly pressed on him on some things that he had said in the past. He definitely did very good for himself, and there were a few others that didn't do so bad, but it's really hard to compare them to him. He made the most of his time.
All right, and we're going to switch gears a little bit. On the day of the first primary for the Republicans, that debate, Democrats also announcing when their first primary debate is going to be. It's going to be October 13th in Nevada. That's hosted by CNN. Not that we'll have to wait until then to hear from the candidates, though. Hillary Clinton dropping her first 2 ads of the campaign season this week in Iowa and New Hampshire. Now, both of you have had the chance to see those ads, clearly geared towards family, softening herself a little bit as a grandmother. Is that strategic as the Republicans take to the stage and kind of beat up on each other during these primary debates?
Absolutely strategic. This is an opportunity right now for her to say, okay, fight amongst yourselves. I'm going to continue pushing out my brand, pushing out my message, and this is a really good time for her to be promoting family values and definitely softening that image, but throwing focus to her long service to our country. That's what those ads were meant for. So definitely strategic on her part. You'll see more of that messaging and lots of other messages in time.
You see Republicans trying to brand her as callous and cold. She's done some things to, contribute to that, such as keeping reporters at a certain distance and, flying on private jets and so forth and so on. This does a lot to help with that. I mean, it's, hey, I'm a mother, I'm a grandmother. Those are all positive things. You can't go wrong by being positive in places like Iowa and New Hampshire right now. She needs that. I think it's a very good strategy on her part.
All right, lots more to come in this. Thank you, Clint Reed and Jessica Sabin, for joining us this morning. All right, that does it for us on this week's edition of Talk Business and Politics. Roby is back in the big chair next week, likely a little tanner from his very much deserved beach vacation. Until then, you can stay up to date with the political and business news at KATV.com and talkbusiness.net. I'm Janelle Lilley. Have a great Sunday.